And then call to order this meeting of the Easton Reading Region 9 Joint Policy Committee at 9 a.m. on June 10th, 2022. Members in attendance, John Stinson and Christopher Parkin.
I call to order this special Region 9 Policy Committee meeting on June 10th at 9 a.m. Members in attendance are Sarah Lieberger, Kathy Thompson, and that's it so far.
Our first item on the agenda is public comment. Seeing no members of the public present, we'll move on to committee member comment. Hearing none, we'll move on to discussion and possible action. I know there was an attempt to add the sort of review of the meeting minutes as well, but they weren't posted. That part of the agenda wasn't posted, and so while we could do it on our side because it's a regular meeting for us, amending the agenda is impossible. So better to keep in sync there. That'll take us to discussion and possible action. Our three items: the policy review process, administrative updates, and model policy review. I want to give our administrator in attendance an opportunity to call out anything so that we make sure we save time for it. As I think we're trying to get done in about 30 minutes today.
Oh, okay. I'll be quick.
Sure.
Just an update. I added a lot of contact information for Reading at the start of this week, and I worked for a good amount of time yesterday to also provide the same contact information for Region 9. I also shared a couple of policies with our nurse coordinator where there was a request from Region 9 regarding immunizations, and I think there was one other. I wrote a couple of notes that the committee might want to discuss, the Region 9 Policy Committee in particular, although it probably pertains to Easton and Reading. John, if you would like me to provide the same contact information for Easton, for the Easton policies, I can certainly do that. It's the non-discrimination, Title IX, child abuse.
Yeah, that would be
where they're looking for very specific contact information that's district specific.
504 coordinators and things like that.
Yeah, that would be very much appreciated. We intend to do our second reading and approval of basically the same policies that Chris approved last Tuesday. So coming up this next Tuesday, we plan to get in sync there. So to the extent that we can have those policies as sort of perfectly formed as possible, that would be excellent.
Okay, there was a reference in one of the Region 9 policies that I was looking at that spoke to a medical advisor, but it talks about district, and I don't know if it requires any additional discussion or revision, but in our case, because Region 9 serves two different towns, there's a medical in Reading. Our medical advisor is also the health director. In Easton, we do have a medical advisor. The health director is a different person. So I'm just noting that probably the most complicated for Region 9.
Okay, good.
Just to that point, Stephanie, do you have a suggestion as to what it would be for Region 9? Would it be those?
I would include both, honestly. I would just say the relevant town's medical advisor. They're really asking for medical advisor. They weren't asking for health director. Just noting that in Reading, it happens to be the same person.
I think in an ideal world, these policies where there are contact points could and should say, health director for Reading, health department, for Easton, medical advisor, for Region 9, X and Y, just like 504 coordinator. For Reading, it's this person, for Easton, it's this person, for Region 9, it's this person, because that's just another example of a way that we can align the text so that we're not diverging by accident.
Right.
So there's a medical advisor in Reading and there's a medical advisor in Easton.
Correct.
Each town has their own. So it would just be kind of and or, it sounds like.
Yeah, and or where applicable.
Okay.
Et cetera. Yeah.
Yes, but to Chris's point, I mean, it would be great. So for instance, the director of special education in Easton and Reading their title is the director of special services. In Region 9, that title is the director of special education. So to the extent that it could just be worded, similar to the way we do principal/head of school, it seems that you could do the same thing and cover so that
Cover.
you're not adjusting individual policies.
Makes sense.
Oh, thank you.
Very good. Then I think what would be helpful for all of us to just sort of understand, sort of the process and sort of where we're at is to hear from Chris about sort of what happened this last Tuesday and get a sense of the progress.
Sure. So after the Region 9 committee meeting on Friday, I spent about 3 hours on Saturday and 1 or 2 hours on Sunday, taking all the policies for which there was substantial agreement that were on our first read list from a month ago. I went through them again and I passed from them those which had subsequently been noted as purely regulations or those that were clearly subject to additional discussion, like the FMLA policy that a month ago we thought we might be able to bottom out on in those 4 weeks, but then we didn't. And so of the 70 or so that were first read, I withdrew probably 10 and put on the agenda the remaining, I think it was 57 policies for ultimate adoption. And in so doing, I took out all the shipment headers. I added the district. I didn't make any references specifically to Reading where I could possibly avoid it. There were a handful of sort of stylistic changes just to make sure we were taking out drafting notes and sentences made sense. I provided a change log to my board of every policy for which I made any revisions so I could point them to those and those for which there were no revisions. I noted where we had made recommendations as committees about taking optional language or not taking optional language. And I circulated that all with a final draft folder to my board on Sunday. And then those policies were all adopted and the balance were repealed with the exception of those that were held back on Tuesday. So now we have a hybrid policy book for the time being, about 57 shipment policies and probably about 20-ish K policies. And so my goal moving forward on the Reading end would be to identify from those 20K policies for which ones we are converting over to shipment, for which ones we are holding to get into a semi-permanent state until we get into a quarterly review cadence in the fall.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. That a lot of very good, useful work. I think the intent on the Easton side is to use basically the same language that you created, the sort of non-denominational version of the policies. It doesn't need to have the district name plastered throughout for our purposes. And so I think
I will add that I think the policy that I used the most sort of artistic license with was the where there were two. One was the use of facilities and the other was the student activity funds.
Yep.
The use of facilities had a table in it that said, if this, it's this, if this, it's this. And we had comments because in some districts there's an athletic director, in some districts there's not. I collapsed all of that to building principal or designee, which allows the head of school at Barlow, if they adopt that language, to just designate the athletic director without creating a complication.
Right.
On the student activities funds, there was a regional policy and a district policy. And we had talked early on about how they were substantially similar and it seemed relatively easy to consolidate the language and allow it to work for all three districts. And so I did that. And I basically said, here's what happens. It goes back to the town or towns. It is audited by the town or towns pursuant to statute, such and such. And it is considered the same thing as other things. I took a handful of words from the regional policy. I put it into the local policy. They became the same thing. And we went with that. And obviously it's Region 9's prerogative whether they want to accept a one size fits all policy or not, but that was the effort.
Yeah, that's great. Well,
Chris, would you mind sharing that with us just so we could see your language and see if we can make it align as best as we can?
Yeah, I can share with you the folder of policies that were second read and adopted.
Perfect.
Because I pulled out of that folder even the ones that we passed on to avoid any confusion.
Great.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And we will be targeting in Easton on this coming Tuesday. We'll be targeting the same 57 policies. And the hope will be that after next Tuesday, that Easton and Reading at least will be well on their way to sort of completing this project. And then I think I think it's something to discuss whether or not we immediately move to monthly, or we continue with a weekly cadence to get those remaining policies. My suggestion would be that as we're coming into the summer, wouldn't be a bad thing to switch to monthly, and I don't know if we think we could actually get it done and get to the point where we have the other policies sort of in shape by the beginning of the school year. I think there's a lot of utility to that. But
John, if you get everything adopted on Tuesday, I'd be happy to basically block out a 2-hour period at some point, basically to create an issues list and say, what are the open issues and for who? And then we can distribute that to either the administration or Shipman and Goodman or whoever and say, here's the collective homework assignment from the committee. Let's come back at the end of July and make all the revisions based on that feedback. So we're not asking council or the administration to have a 1-week turn time on some complicated issues, but we owe it to them to create that issues list first.
I love that. That would be a great, and I like the idea of doing it, a sort of concentrated block of 2 hours where I think we could get a lot done. We could probably get through the entire sort of remaining set. And then, I could see two approaches where we say, hey, give us some advice on these remaining issues, or we could say, give us the version that we can just approve, where we're not going to discuss any more about this. We're going to just give us the version we're going to approve. And,
if we're ultimately agnostic about how we're scheduling, how we're noting the passage of time for FMLA purposes, it's really what do you guys find most administratively convenient? That's what we recommend.
Right. Yeah, that's great. Okay. That's all I had. I don't know if Chris, you had anything else. Is there anything on the Region 9 side that we want to dive into?
No, I mean, we were just waiting to hear from administration. So Stephanie, that was helpful. Have there been any other policies that you wanted us to hold on? I know that a couple weeks back you had said we need to wait on pet wellness. Was there anything else that's come up recently that we should note? I mean, Chris has probably added them potentially to some of the policies he withdrew, but I just wanted to clarify in case any of us aren't aware.
Nothing from my point of view in terms of representing administration, but I think you did receive some feedback from the attorney that will require more discussion. So in particular, I'm talking about the parent engagement with Title I. That was informative input that we received, and certainly a departure from our current practice. So we would need to take a number of steps to implement those changes.
And that was, thank you, Stephanie, for going through all of that and adding the contact information to the policies. Thank you. And that was a question that came up last week because you had mentioned in your notes that while we accept some funding, Title I funding, we're not Title I schools in any of the districts. And Shipman and Goodwin did reply to that. We had said we needed some feedback, and they did reply to that. I don't know if everybody has seen it. Did Chris and John, or would you like to? I don't know if you've seen Gwen's note. I don't know how broadly it was shared. Sarah, did everybody see it?
Gwen replied all. So I believe that you're on the list, right? Yeah. So,
and basically what they did, because we had talked about, well, maybe we don't need this policy, but they said we do, in fact, need it. And the policy does require engagement from the families and students, the cohort that it affects. So that was good feedback from Shipman, because we weren't aware of that before, that we actually needed it, even though we're not Title I schools.
Right.
Okay.
So this is certainly very doable. It's just a matter of, it needs to be on my to-do list for the summer so that we can put some procedures in place so that the administration in each school has a process for gathering feedback and input from parents of students who receive any type of support under Title I funding.
Okay, great. So yeah, that's an example of something we'll have to move to our hold list until we get more work done over the summer and those procedures are in place. So thank you. Appreciate all your feedback on that.
I know, thank you. The two other policies that require significant input are the weighted grading and the graduation requirements, because those Shipman can't fill those in. You know, there's a lot of blanks. So to the degree that I think we should just take a minute just to talk about, are we going to be able to input all of that to go to second reading? It's just I think all the information's available. It's just putting it in, dropping it into the policy as it currently stands.
I think we can certainly do that before the Region 9 meeting at the end of the month, right? Isn't that your target, Kathy?
It's a 20, ours is the 21st. So yeah, it's like a week and a half away, I guess.
Yeah, since we're not looking for a change in our practice, we're just looking to include the current process. I think we can certainly do that.
All right, that's excellent.
And remind me, is that one that John and Chris don't include as Easton and Reading? Because I thought we kind of just assumed we adopted all of them, even though like the sunscreen one, for example, weighted grade would be an example the other way. Are we kind of just still trying to collectively adopt the same policy, even though it may not be applicable?
It's effectively irrelevant for us, obviously, but
Yep.
and I think I took that out and I took the online classes out because I knew that there were, to the extent there was discussion about Region 9 specific issues, I'm not interested in putting that through until Region 9 has bottomed out on it. Then I'm happy to put it through so we have a consolidated thing, even if it's of limited or no effect.
And we can just put it through as is. Like we don't need to do anything different to it.
Right. And I think the only way any of those really intersect with us is the extent to which there's credit opportunities available for middle school students and what that does on our end.
Right.
Okay.
And you know, similarly, if there were a policy that, you know, specifically dealt with preschool, you know, I think it would be wise for Region 9 to just say, hey, put this over here. We work through, we approve, and then, you know, it would be beneficial to have that on your books as well, but you know, there's no urgency to it.
And Stephanie, it's probably, I would think it would be the district's plural preference to just have one across of the three, correct?
Certainly easier for implementation.
Yeah. Okay.
Kathy, was there anything else on your list of to-do items for the redlining that you wanted to go over?
I think those were the big things. Everything's in the folder because I had redlined, I added all of the Shipman comments we got back. I addressed them with notes. It's all redlined so anybody can see it. And I know Stephanie did work yesterday that I haven't seen yet, but she made notes in our spreadsheet. So I think all of that's, you know, everybody's plugging away.
Great. Okay, I think we are all set on the Region 9 side of things.
Nice. All right, well then I think that will take us to committee member comment. And I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Chris.
So moved.
No objection here, so we will consider ourselves adjourned at 9:18 a.m.
All right, and Region 9, I will move to adjourn as well at 9:18 a.m. And thank you all. That was like a record breaker.
And Region 9 folks, I've shared with you my change log and the files that were adopted on Tuesday, so you have that to see as reference.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.